What if I told you that one single strike could change the balance of power in the entire Middle East overnight, and possibly reshape global politics for years to come? What if the reported assassination of a leader could push the world to the edge of a much wider confrontation? Right now, tensions between Iran and the United States-Israel axis have escalated from shadow conflict into what many observers describe as open and dangerous confrontation. And at the center of this storm stands Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, with circulating claims that he was martyred in a joint American and Israeli strike, although initial Iranian reports did not confirm the news. Later media indications suggested internal acknowledgement, and whether fully verified or still contested, the impact of such claims alone is explosive because Ayatollah Khamenei is not merely a political figure but the ideological core of the Islamic Republic, shaping Iran's domestic structure, regional alliances, and doctrine of resistance for more than 3 decades. Meaning that removing such a figure would not simply represent a tactical military action but an attempt to shake the foundation of the Iranian state itself. And when foundations shake, nations react. Across Iran, emotions are intensifying, gatherings are expected in major cities, and in countries such as Iraq and Yemen, where Iran-aligned groups operate, reactions could spill into the streets, transforming a military event into a region-wide wave of political and social mobilization. While former U.S. President Donald Trump has issued strong statements and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reinforced firm messaging, as airstrikes on Iranian-linked targets purportedly continue and Iran responds with missile launches and drone operations targeting strategic U.S. installations across the Gulf including Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, locations that represent not random targets but critical nodes of American military projection in the region, sending a calculated message that Tehran will not absorb blows without retaliation, while simultaneously warning that any attempt to dismantle its missile program or defense infrastructure will trigger stronger and more advanced responses. With Iranian officials claiming possession of thousands of advanced missiles not yet deployed, framing their strategy as deterrence under pressure. Meanwhile, reports of a tragic attack on a girls' school inside Iran, resulting in dozens of casualties, have intensified emotions further, with blame placed on the United States and Israel. And in times of conflict, narratives become weapons. Civilian suffering transforms geopolitical struggle into personal outrage. And public anger can accelerate escalation beyond strategic calculation, making the psychological dimension of this confrontation as significant as the military one. While global audiences watch headlines that increasingly resemble chapters of a rapidly unfolding historical turning point, beyond the immediate battlefield the stakes expand dramatically, because this conflict is intertwined with global economics, energy security, and great power rivalry, particularly through the Strait of Hormuz where nearly 20% of the world's oil shipments pass, meaning that even a temporary disruption could cause oil prices to surge, trigger stock market volatility from New York to London to Tokyo, intensify inflation worldwide, and ripple into everyday life through fuel costs, transportation expenses, and consumer prices, creating a chain reaction that connects distant missile strikes to household budgets. While the United States faces a strategic dilemma between acting decisively to maintain deterrence and avoiding a prolonged entanglement that could strain domestic politics and economic stability, Israel views Iran's missile capabilities and regional network as an existential threat requiring firm countermeasures to preserve national security credibility. And Iran frames the confrontation as resistance and sovereignty after decades of sanctions and isolation, turning the crisis into a symbolic struggle over influence in the Middle East's future order, as Russia and China issue cautious statements signaling concern and strategic interest, aware that deeper escalation could pull them into diplomatic alignments or economic counterbalancing that reshape global power blocks, raising the unsettling historical reminder that major wars often begin with limited strikes, retaliatory cycles, or miscalculations that grow beyond original intentions. And as military movements, diplomatic tones, and market reactions evolve in real time, the coming days become critical indicators of trajectory. If rhetoric softens, negotiations may re-emerge through back-channel mediation. But if statements harden and strikes intensify, the risk of broader regional conflict increases, potentially drawing in additional actors and transforming a localized confrontation into a wider geopolitical crisis. This is why the moment matters so profoundly, because it is not simply about one leader or one exchange of fire, but about the balance of deterrence, the architecture of Middle Eastern security, the stability of global energy flows, and the question of whether diplomacy can intervene before escalation surpasses control, making this period one that history may one day describe as a decisive crossroads when the region stood at the edge and the world watched closely, aware that the consequences of each decision, military, political, or diplomatic, far beyond the immediate theater and define the contours of international relations for years to come.